The sharp sound of a slap echoed through the small, poorly lit restaurant. Monica stumbled forward, almost losing her balance. Her cheek stung, her vision blurred with shock and humiliation. The entire room fell silent for a second, as if even the ceiling fan stopped spinning just to witness the disgrace. Laughter broke out, loud, cruel, and mocking. 3 young men sat near the window, their flashy suits doing little to cover the ugliness of their behavior. One had just slapped Monica's backside as she turned away from taking their orders. Another had yanked her long hair with such force she almost fell. Now they sat grinning like they'd just won a game. Their voices rang out like poison. "Poor waitress," Jonathan sneered. "You're not even strong enough for this job." "That is the truth," Emeka joined in with a smirk. "How will you now satisfy customers that want extra service in the private rooms, huh?" Their laughter roared through the restaurant again. Monica was still on the floor, stunned. The tray had crashed beside her. Her hair was messy, her knees scraped, but worse than all that was the feeling in her chest, the deep ache. She wasn't angry yet. She was heartbroken. And then it got worse. From behind the counter, Madame Adana, the restaurant owner, snapped, "Will you get up and stop embarrassing this place, Monica? Customers are always right. Or are you too weak for this $30 job too?" The words cut deeper than the slap. But just as Monica tried to rise, her eyes caught someone standing slowly from a corner table, a man in a brown checkered shirt with glasses and kind eyes. He had been quietly eating alone. Now his face was tight with fury. "Madam," he said calmly, "you can't be serious. You just saw what they did to her." "Mr. Maxwell, or whatever your name is," Adana said, waving her hand, "please don't bring sentiment into business. This is a restaurant, not a court." Maxwell ignored her and walked toward Monica. He bent down, offered his hand, and gently helped her up. His voice was firm, yet soft. "Are you all right?" Monica nodded weakly. Her lips trembled. She still hadn't said a word. "Touch her again." Maxwell turned to the men, "and you'll leave this place in cuffs." The young men rolled their eyes. "Look at this broke hero," David snorted. "Trying to impress a waitress," but Maxwell didn't flinch. He helped Monica to her seat and gave her a bottle of water. "You don't have to stay here," he told her gently. "This isn't your only option." She gave him a long look. Something in his tone made her believe him. And then, just before leaving, the young men decided to throw one last insult. Jonathan leaned in with a fake smile. "In case you both broke people care to know, we're petrochemical engineers. We work for Williams Oil and Gas, Abuja headquarters. You're not even in our league." They walked out, leaving behind a storm of silence. What they didn't know, what nobody in that restaurant knew, was that Monica Williams, the poor waitress, was the only daughter of Chief Williams Benjamin, the billionaire CEO of the same Williams Oil and Gas. She could buy the restaurant they sat in 10 times over. She could fire every one of those boys with a single phone call, but she didn't. She just sat there quietly, sipping the water Maxwell gave her, and smiled. Monica Williams was born with everything money could buy: private tutors, diamond necklaces before her 10th birthday. Her face graced tabloids. She had traveled to over 20 countries before she turned 18. Her father, Chief Williams Benjamin, was one of the wealthiest oil magnates in West Africa. But at age 30, Monica cried herself to sleep more often than not. Behind the designer clothes and flashy cars was a lonely heart. A heart that had been lied to, used and tossed aside. Every man who claimed to love her wanted one thing: her money, her status, her family name. No one ever saw her, just the wealth around her. So, one night, she packed a small bag, she changed her hair, wore old clothes, and left her mansion. Her heart ached, but her mind was made up. She needed to know. Could someone love her if they didn't know who she really was? The next morning, she walked into a struggling restaurant on the outskirts of Abuja. She told Madame Adana she needed a job. Anything. Adana didn't look up. "Can you clean?" "Yes, ma." "Can you carry trays?" "Yes, ma." $30 a month. "No sleeping here." "You're not allowed to eat customer leftovers." And if you're late, I deduct $10. You still want it?" Monica nodded. Adana looked up, surprised. She stared at the girl with long hair and soft eyes. She didn't look like someone who needed this job, but she shrugged. "Wear this apron and start now." And just like that, the heiress to a billion-dollar empire became a waitress with no last name. In the following days, Monica faced it all. Shouting, insults, spills, burns, rude customers, and aching feet. Adana never stopped yelling. "Monica, you forgot to say sir to that customer. You are too slow. Maybe this job is not for you. You broke the glass. That's $5 from your pay." Each word cut her down, but Monica swallowed every insult. She kept her head low, because her mission was simple, to see the world through the eyes of the poor and to find love that had nothing to do with status. She cleaned the toilets. She wiped tables. She smiled through pain. Every night, she went back to a small room she rented and stared at a picture of her parents. Her mother had cried when she told them her plan. "You will be in danger, Monica." Her father refused to speak to her for 2 days, but eventually they gave in under one condition. She had to stay in touch through a private line. Her father hired private security to keep watch from a distance. She never knew they were there. He didn't want his only child harmed. And still the days dragged. Nothing exciting happened. Until Maxwell showed up. That same evening after the incident, Maxwell walked Monica to her rented room. "I'm sorry you had to go through that today," he said. Monica smiled a little. "I've gone through worse." He paused. "I'd like to do something for you. I don't have much, but I can help you get into a tech program. I teach robotics. I've seen how smart and polite you are. You don't deserve to be in that place." Monica looked up at him, genuinely touched. "No one has ever offered me help without asking something in return," she whispered. "Well," Maxwell said with a chuckle, "I'm not like most people." They shared a laugh, and silence followed. It was a good kind of silence. He gently asked for her number, and she gave it. Before leaving, Maxwell turned. "Please resign. I'll help you find a better place." "I will," she said. "Tomorrow," Monica said. That night, Maxwell couldn't sleep. He called her. "I know it's late," he said softly, "but I had to say it. I think I like you. A lot." Monica's heart skipped. "I'm just a poor girl, Maxwell," she whispered. "No degree, no future." "That's not what I see. I see someone smart, strong, someone worth every effort." Tears welled up in Monica's eyes. She finally spoke. "Pick me up tomorrow. I got a new cleaning job at the Williams mansion. Come get me there. Let's start fresh." The next morning, Maxwell dressed in his best shirt. He arrived at the mansion and nervously told the gatekeeper, "I'm here to see Monica. She works here." The guard smiled. "Ah, Madam Monica. She said you were coming. Please, go in. She's in the sitting room." Maxwell froze. "Madam? Sitting room?" As he walked in, nothing could prepare him for what he saw. Monica sat on a velvet couch, sipping orange juice from a crystal glass. Her pajamas looked more expensive than his entire wardrobe. Her hair was tied neatly in a royal bun. She looked like someone from a magazine cover. Maxwell blinked. "Monica?" Before she could speak, Chief Williams entered with his wife. The moment he saw Maxwell, he walked up to him with a warm handshake. "Welcome, Mr. Maxwell. Monica told us about you. We've looked into your tech work. It's impressive." Maxwell's jaw dropped. Monica stood up. Her voice calm, elegant, and proud. "You're wondering what's going on, right?" She smiled. "I'm Monica Williams, the only daughter of Chief Williams Benjamin, heiress of the Williams Empire. I went undercover to find something money can't buy, and I found you." Maxwell couldn't speak. Tears rolled down his face. Yesterday he'd defended a waitress. Today he stood before royalty. And Monica? She was no longer the poor girl. She was the woman he loved. Maxwell sat frozen, the weight of Monica's truth pressing down like 1,000 bricks. The giant chandelier above them twinkled, the smell of lavender and luxury floated in the air, but Maxwell felt like the floor might give way beneath him. Monica, now standing, walked over and held his hand. Her touch was calm, reassuring. "I didn't lie to hurt you," she said gently. "I wanted to find someone who could see me for me. Not the company, not the wealth, not the name or fame." Chief Williams stepped forward with a knowing smile. "Believe me, young man, I tried to stop her from doing this undercover poor girl experiment, but it turns out she was right. She found something priceless." Maxwell glanced down, still overwhelmed. I'm just a robotics teacher. I live in a 2-bedroom flat. I have student debt. I don't belong here." Chief Williams chuckled. "Maxwell, wealth doesn't make someone belong. Integrity does." Monica knelt beside him, took his hands in hers. "You made me feel seen, protected, even when I was nothing but a low-paid waitress. That's all I ever wanted. I want us to build something real, if you're willing." Maxwell's lips quivered as tears welled up again. He managed a whisper. "Then I'm all in." Monica wasted no time. She asked her father for a quiet favor. At the Williams Oil and Gas Abuja headquarters, a formal HR email went out. "Jonathan Uche, David Bello, and Emeka Johnson report to the executive floor at 11 a.m. sharp." The 3 young men were already laughing in the break room. "Bro, last night's party was mad," Jonathan boasted. "There are some fine girls there." "Unlike that clumsy waitress." David leaned back. "I still can't believe that idiot Maxwell defended her. Waste of a man." Emeka smirked. "Broke guys always fall for broke girls. They are perfect match." At 10:55 a.m., they strutted into the executive lobby, laughing. But the moment they stepped into the meeting room, their laughter died. Sitting at the head of the table was Chief Williams himself, and beside him, Monica, dressed elegantly. She looked nothing like the waitress they humiliated. She wore a fitted navy blue suit, diamond earrings, and a cold, unreadable expression. Her posture alone screamed power. "Good morning, gentlemen," Chief Williams said evenly. "Good morning, sir," they stammered. David's voice cracked. Are we being promoted?" Chief Williams raised a brow. "Do you remember a certain waitress you harassed at a restaurant last week?" Jonathan chuckled nervously. "I mean, maybe? A lot of girls serve us." Monica's lips curled slightly. "So, I wasn't memorable?" They all froze. "You?" Emeka whispered. "You're the waitress?" "Was," she replied calmly. "Now, I'm your boss." The room spun. Chief Williams's voice turned stern. "My daughter went undercover to experience real life. What she found instead was abuse, disrespect, and shame, brought on by people representing this company." Jonathan dropped his phone. "We're sorry," David stuttered. "We didn't know." "You shouldn't need to know someone's status to treat them like a human being," Monica snapped. Chief Williams nodded. "Effective immediately, your appointments are terminated." "Please, sir, please," they cried, falling to their knees. Monica stood and looked at them without emotion. "This isn't revenge. This is consequence." Security entered. And just like that, the young men were escorted out, their laughter replaced with tears. Back at the Williams mansion, Madame Adana stood at the gate in an old wrapper, her eyes puffy from crying. She clutched her hands like a schoolgirl caught stealing. The guards were about to turn her away when Monica stepped outside. Adana dropped to her knees immediately. "My daughter, please, I had no idea it was you. If I had known—" "That's the problem, Madame Adana," Monica cut in, voice calm but sharp. "Why should you need to know who someone is before treating them with basic respect?" Adana sobbed. "I'm sorry, I was wrong. I was wicked. I didn't mean it." Monica's mother stepped beside her, placing a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Monica, forgiveness is more powerful than punishment." Monica sighed, then knelt down. "You taught me something, Madame Adana. You taught me how the poor are truly treated. You were the mirror I didn't want to see, and maybe, That's why I don't hate you." Adana's hands trembled. "So you forgive me?" "I forgive you," Monica said. "But change how you treat people, even if they have holes in their clothes." "Yes, I swear." "Thank you," Adana cried. Monica helped her up. Sometimes forgiveness makes more noise than revenge ever can. 1 week later, Monica and Maxwell stood on the rooftop of her father's mansion, gazing over the city lights. She wore a soft, flowing gown. He wore a modest button-up shirt. He looked at her like she was the only thing in the world. "I feel like I'm dreaming," he whispered. "You're not," she smiled. "This is real." Maxwell took a deep breath. "Monica, I want to walk this life with you. Whether you're a waitress or a billionaire, whether we live in a mansion or a mini-flat, I just want you." He dropped to one knee. Monica gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "I may not have a diamond ring right now, but I have a diamond heart. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down her cheeks. "Yes. 1,000,000 times yes." From the shadows, her parents clapped. Her father's eyes secretly wet with pride. Monica soon joined Maxwell in his small but brilliant tech lab. Together they worked day and night to launch a device designed to bring educational tools to children in Africa's poorest communities. Chief Williams, proud beyond words, funded the project. And in an emotional press conference, Maxwell Tech and Williams Oil and Gas announced the joint venture Future First Africa. Within months, countries like Ghana, Kenya, and Rwanda signed on. Tech companies called, awards poured in. But for Monica and Maxwell, the biggest win wasn't the millions. It was the mission, the love and the peace. But just as things felt perfect, a call came in. Monica picked it up, her smile slowly fading. Maxwell walked in. "Everything okay?" She looked at him, troubled. "That was from my father's lawyer." "What happened?" Monica swallowed hard. "There's been a leak. Someone is trying to blackmail my father, and they say I'm the reason." Maxwell's face dropped. "What do you mean?" She turned toward the window, watching the city lights. "I think someone followed me during my undercover time, and they're about to destroy everything we've built." Maxwell stepped closer. "We'll fight it together." But Monica's voice dropped. "No, Max, this time, I think it's personal." The mansion was no longer calm. What had once been a home filled with joy and celebration now simmered with silent tension. Monica stared at the large screen in her father's private office. It displayed a blurry photo. Her, dressed in her waitress uniform, cleaning the floors of Adana's restaurant. Another photo followed. Monica crouched behind the kitchen counter, her hair messy, her hands burned from a hot tray. And then the final blow. A video clip of Monica being slapped and harassed by the three men, the audio painfully clear. Their crude laughter, her silence, Madame Adana's harsh voice. It was all there. Everything. A deep voice cut through the tension. "They sent this to me anonymously," Chief Williams said, arms crossed, voice controlled but furious. "And they said if I don't wire 50 million naira to an offshore account within 48 hours, they'll leak it to the press with a fabricated story claiming I abused you and forced you to work like a slave while covering it up." Monica's mouth went dry. "They want to ruin the company. They want to shame us." "No," her father replied grimly. "They want to destroy you, Monica. You are the heiress. They want to make you look like the victim of your own family's cruelty. They want the world to believe your own father forced you into poverty." Maxwell paced beside them, fists clenched. "This is insane. Who would do this?" "I have a feeling," Monica whispered. "Someone must have followed me during my time at the restaurant. Someone who knew I wasn't just any girl." Chief Williams pulled out an envelope and tossed it on the table. Inside were stills from CCTV footage taken near the restaurant over several weeks. Someone had been tailing her, wearing caps, changing clothes, blending in. But one face showed too clearly, Jonathan, one of the three young men who had humiliated her. "You're telling me Jonathan had the nerve to spy on you?" Maxwell asked, stunned. Monica nodded slowly. "It makes sense. He worked for Williams Oil and Gas. He must have recognized me somewhere. Or maybe he got suspicious after our encounter." Her father stood up. I want him found. Now. That evening, Monica sat in a downtown cafe, dressed in a hoodie and dark sunglasses. She held her phone tightly, her face cold but composed. Across the table, Maxwell sat with a laptop, watching live footage from a security drone positioned 2 streets away. They had leaked word through a dummy email account, pretending Monica was scared and willing to pay the money in person. At exactly 6:42 p.m., Jonathan walked into the cafe. No cap, no disguise, just a smug face and a phone in his hand. He walked over, slid into the seat across from her, and leaned in. "You're braver than I thought," he sneered. "Meeting me here." Monica didn't flinch. "You're dumber than I thought, risking your career." "Your life," Jonathan smirked. "Career? That's gone thanks to you. You humiliated us. Do you think people forget being dragged out like criminals? I lost everything. So your plan is to destroy mine?" Monica asked. "Oh, sweet Monica," he said, almost laughing. "You're not the only one with connections. Someone higher up is helping me. Someone inside Williams Oil and Gas wants your father gone. You're just the beginning." Maxwell's voice crackled in her earpiece. "Monica, don't react. Just hold him talking. The police are 3 minutes away." She steadied her breath. "So, who is this person helping you?" Jonathan chuckled, his eyes gleaming. "Oh, come on, you think I'd tell you just like that?" But then he leaned closer and whispered, "You know the name, Monica. We all do. He's been watching you since you were 16. Suddenly, Monica froze. A name flickered through her memory, a former executive her father fired years ago for financial misconduct. A man who once tried to partner with her father and was humiliated in front of the board when the deal fell apart. A man whose own son. No. Monica's eyes widened. "You mean Mr. Danladi?" Jonathan smirked. "I didn't say anything." And just then, police burst in. The cafe doors burst open. Jonathan tried to run, but 2 plainclothes officers tackled him to the ground. It was over. Back at the mansion, Monica's parents listened carefully as she explained what Jonathan had revealed. "Mr. Danladi is back," Chief Williams muttered, pacing. "I knew he'd try something someday, but I didn't expect this level of cunning." Monica looked shaken. "He was always too ambitious. And bitter. When you fired him, didn't he say something like, 'Your daughter will one day pay for your arrogance'?" Her father nodded. "That day was 11 years ago." Maxwell asked quietly, "But why now?" Her mother responded, "Because Monica is finally being seen in public again. After years of staying quiet, she's suddenly active, running campaigns, launching new projects. She's visible again. And he wants to destroy her image before she can rise," Chief Williams added. The next morning, newspapers carried a different story. Hero waitress turned heiress catches corporate blackmailer. The public was in awe. But inside the walls of an empty skyscraper in Lagos, a man in a grey suit watched the headlines. His fingers tapped the glass desk slowly. His eyes were sharp, calculating. "Mr. Danladi." "Congratulations, Monica," he said to himself with a smile. "You win the first round. But this is just the beginning." Later that night, there was a glimmer of hope. Monica stood on the balcony of her room, her arms crossed. Maxwell joined her quietly. "Do you think it's over?" she asked. "No," he said honestly, "but I think you just won the first battle." Monica turned to him. "If I had told you the truth about who I was in the beginning, would you have stayed?" Maxwell didn't even hesitate. "I didn't fall in love with your name. I fell in love with your kindness, your heart, the way you cried in the back room after being insulted, and still got up to serve the next customer." Monica smiled, tears gathering. He continued, "It wasn't your wealth that made you special. It was your ability to remain humble through it all. I loved the woman behind the apron." She leaned on him. "And now, the girl behind the empire loves you back." But, just as they exhaled, Monica's phone buzzed. It was from the Williams Oil and Gas internal server. A new video had been uploaded anonymously, and it was already spreading. Maxwell looked over her shoulder. His face fell. On the screen was a doctored video showing Monica throwing money at restaurant staff and laughing cruelly. It wasn't real, but it looked real enough. "Maxwell," Monica whispered, panic rising. "This is bad." Her voice cracked. "They're trying to turn the public against me." Maxwell's fists clenched. "Then we fight harder." Monica turned toward the window, a storm now brewing in her eyes. "They wanted war," she said slowly. "They'll get it." The video exploded online. Across Nigeria and even parts of East Africa, the doctored clip of Monica went viral. In it, she was seen laughing heartlessly, throwing money at the feet of restaurant workers who cowered in the corner. Her voice had been altered to say, "This is what you deserve, you peasants." By morning, hashtags were trending. Monica the bully, Williams' empire exposed, spoilt heiress gone mad. Headlines screamed accusations. Billionaire daughter disrespects the poor. Is this the real Monica? From waitress to witch? Viral video sparks outrage. And Monica, she sat in her room, staring at her screen. Her chest tightened with each new headline. "This is not me," she whispered. "This is not who I am." Maxwell was already in action, coordinating with their in-house tech security team, calling trusted journalists, trying to trace the source of the leak. But public opinion had turned fast. Even international blogs picked up the story. Some former acquaintances and socialites began adding fuel to the fire, saying things like, "I always knew she looked down on people. This is who she truly is." Inside Williams Oil and Gas headquarters, Chief Williams had called an emergency board meeting. The mood was tense. Investors were jittery. Brand partners were threatening to withdraw. Charities funded by the company were receiving angry emails from the public. "Monica must release a statement," one board member insisted. "If she doesn't, this company may fall." Chief Williams slammed the table. "My daughter was framed. You all know the kind of person she is, but the world doesn't," another barked. "In the public eye, perception is reality." The room erupted in heated debate. Monica watched from behind the glass, unseen. Her fingers curled into fists. She wasn't just angry. She was heartbroken. Not because people doubted her, but because evil was winning. And she wasn't going to allow it. Meanwhile, the trap deepens. In an abandoned office in Lekki, Mr. Danladi was on a private call. "Monica's public image is collapsing," he said with calm satisfaction. "One more push and she'll lose her credibility forever." The voice on the other end crackled. "Are you sure this is enough to destroy her father too?" "Trust me," Danladi smiled. "Once the world sees Monica as arrogant and power-drunk, people will begin to ask, what kind of father raised her? The Williams name will crumble, slowly, surely." He hung up and turned toward the shadows. Behind him stood a familiar figure. "Jonathan." "Was the deep fake convincing enough?" Jonathan asked. Danladi smiled. "Almost too real. You've done well." But Jonathan was uneasy. "What if she proves it's fake?" Danladi's eyes glinted. "She'll try, but by the time she does, the damage will already be done." Later that night, Monica stood on the rooftop with her parents and Maxwell. She was silent for a long time, then finally spoke. "I want to hold a press conference tomorrow." Her mother's eyes widened. "Are you sure, darling? The media will rip you apart." "I won't defend myself," Monica replied. "What?" Chief Williams snapped. "You must defend yourself." She looked at him. "Let me finish, Daddy. I won't defend myself with words. I'll do it with proof." Maxwell stepped forward. "We traced the IP address of the uploader. It came from a private server connected to Danladi's offshore companies." Her father's eyes narrowed. "So, it's time." Monica nodded. "It's time." Dozens of media houses gathered at the Williams Tech Auditorium the next day. The room was packed. Cameras pointed toward the stage. Commentators whispered. Monica walked out in a simple white suit, no makeup, no jewelry, just her, calm and real. She stood before the microphone and let the silence hang. Then she spoke. A video is circulating online, a video of me doing something I've never done, singing words I've never said. She paused. The crowd watched, some skeptical, some waiting to be convinced. I won't tell you it's fake, she continued. I'll show you. The screen behind her lit up. Side-by-side comparisons of the viral video and her real footage from the restaurant security cameras. Audio waveforms, timestamps, analysis reports from international digital forensic labs confirming it was a deepfake. Journalists gasped. The crowd shifted in stunned silence. And then Monica dropped the hammer. My father's former partner, Mr. Dan Laddie, who was dismissed 11 years ago for embezzlement, is behind this. And as of this morning, we have filed a full lawsuit against him for blackmail, cyberterrorism, and defamation. The reporters exploded with questions. Monica raised a hand. I went undercover because I wanted to feel what the average Nigerian feels. I wanted to understand humility, suffering, and truth. I didn't do it for a story. I did it because I was tired of not knowing who I really was outside wealth. She looked straight into the cameras. I was a waitress, and I was humiliated. And still, I found love. I found kindness. From people like Maxwell. From people who had nothing to gain from me. And then she smiled. I have nothing to hide, and I have nothing to prove. Except the truth. The room erupted in applause. By evening, the hashtags had changed. We stand with Monica. Truth over lies. Monica the Brave. The deepfake expose became a national conversation. Activists, feminists, and tech professionals rallied behind her. Cyber experts were invited to TV stations to explain deepfakes. A bill was proposed in the National Assembly to regulate the use of AI and protect people from what Monica suffered. Even the president released a statement applauding Monica's bravery. Mr. Dan Laddie, meanwhile, had gone underground. But the law was closing in. Monica and Maxwell were walking out of a charity event one night. Security was tight, but somehow, someone slipped through. A man stepped forward. It was Emeka. One of the original 3 bullies. He looked thinner, desperate, eyes bloodshot. Monica, please, he whispered. They're coming for you next. Dan Laddie has more videos, more plans. And he's not alone. There's someone inside your company feeding him everything. Monica froze. What are you talking about? Emeka shook his head rapidly. I can't say more. If he knows I warned you, I'm dead. Just watch your back. He said the next move will destroy your entire family. And then he disappeared into the crowd. Monica stood still. Maxwell held her shoulders. A traitor inside. More plans? Her family in danger? She turned to Maxwell. This isn't over, she said quietly. Not yet. Monica couldn't sleep that night. Emeka's warning replayed in her mind like a haunting melody. Someone inside your company is feeding him everything. At 2:47 a.m., she was still wide awake, sitting cross-legged on the floor of her bedroom, files scattered around her. Maxwell joined her, his eyes heavy with sleep, but his heart alert. We need to start from the inside, Monica said firmly. Every department, every division, every person who had access to those private meetings. Then we'll start now, Maxwell replied. And they did. By morning, the investigation had begun. Quiet, careful and strategic. Chief Williams assembled a small, trusted team. The head of cybersecurity, a former DSS officer on retainer, and a private forensic analyst flown in from Kenya. They traced all employee communications over the past 3 months. It didn't take long. The mole was someone no one expected. Chika, Monica's long-time personal assistant. The same woman who helped her adjust her apron during her undercover waitress job. The same one who comforted her after her first day of humiliation. The same one who pretended to care. When confronted, she cracked fast. Tears poured down her face. I didn't want to hurt you, Chika sobbed. I was blackmailed. He threatened my family. Chief Williams stood like stone. You leaked Monica's undercover footage? Chika nodded. Yes, but I didn't know he would go this far. He paid me at first, then he started sending threats. He said if I stopped helping him, he'd ruin me. Monica looked at her, quiet, calm. And you didn't think to come to us? I was afraid, Chica screamed. Maxwell stepped forward. Did he say what his next move was? Chica hesitated, then said something that sent chills through the room. He has a secret file. He called it The Fall of the Williams Empire, and it's set to go live in 48 hours. Across every major TV station in the country, the Williams family wasted no time. With the evidence from Chica, they alerted the National Cyber Crimes Unit, but the team agreed legal processes alone wouldn't be fast enough to stop the broadcast. Someone had to go in. That someone was Monica. She had a plan. It was bold, risky, and dangerous. She'd called Dan Laddie, tell him she wanted to negotiate, offer him a public apology and a large settlement in exchange for deleting the file and walking away. He wouldn't resist, because Dan Laddie's weakness was pride. The meeting was set at a private luxury hotel in Victoria Island. Monica entered the penthouse suite wearing all black, flanked only by Maxwell and 2 undercover security agents. Dan Laddie stood by the window, wineglass in hand. His eyes were gleaming. I must admit, he said, you are braver than I thought. I didn't come to fight, Monica replied, cold. I came to save my family name. He smiled like a snake. Good, because if this file drops, the entire country will turn against your father. The oil contracts, the international licenses, they'll all vanish. 1 click, Monica. That's all it takes. Monica nodded. Then she slowly opened her purse, pulled out a tiny tablet. She tapped a button, and the wall behind Dan Laddie lit up. A hidden projector revealed a live screen recording of Dan Laddie's own device, being hacked in real time. What? What is this? He snapped, turning. Monica walked forward. You made one mistake, she said coolly. You underestimated me. Dan Laddie's eyes went wide. She continued. You thought I was just the heiress, the spoiled girl, but I'm also the co-founder of Future First Africa, the most advanced educational tech system on the continent. You think I wouldn't have the tools to trace your every move? Dan Laddie lunged for his phone, but it was too late. Monica's team had accessed everything. Emails, blackmail files, bank transfers, voice recordings, every plan, every threat. And one more thing, a pre-recorded confession from Chica played loudly through the hotel speaker system. Dan Laddie froze. Maxwell stepped forward. The police are downstairs. You're done. For the first time, Dan Laddie looked afraid. Dan Laddie was arrested on charges of cyber-terrorism, blackmail and corporate espionage. Jonathan and others in the blackmail ring were rounded up too and arraigned, and all sentenced to 20 years in prison. And for the first time in weeks, the news was filled with hope. Monica Williams exposes underground cyber ring. The empire stands tall. People apologized publicly, bloggers retracted statements, influencers who once mocked her now praised her. And Chica? She was spared prison time, but was sentenced to a community service and public apology. Monica personally ensured her family was safe because real power is mercy. Months later, the nation watched live as Monica and Maxwell walked down the aisle at a grand outdoor wedding in Abuja. Royalty attended, CEOs, presidents, scholars, inventors, but the most special moment came when Monica turned to her groom during her vows. I once thought love was impossible, that I'd always be seen as a name, a wallet, a stepping stone. But you, Maxwell, you saw me when I was on the floor, broken. You gave me hope when I had nothing. And now I will give you everything. The crowd stood and applauded with tears. Even Chief Williams wiped his eyes. 1 year later, a news anchor smiled brightly on the evening broadcast. Today, Maxwell Tech, in partnership with Williams Oil and Gas, has successfully launched its solar-powered education tablets in 6 African countries. Monica Williams Maxwell and her husband continue to change lives. The camera cut to Monica and Maxwell standing with a group of children under a mango tree in a rural village, teaching them how to use their new tablets. Monica's eyes sparkled. No apron, no disguise, no shame. Just a woman who went looking for love, found it in humility, and built an empire with truth and changing lives in rural areas of Africa. After 3 years of waiting, Monica and Williams welcomed twins, a baby girl and baby boy. And as the sun set behind them that evening, Monica turned to Maxwell and whispered, "We're just getting started." He smiled, kissed her forehead, and whispered back, "The world isn't ready for us." What is your view about this story? Where are you watching from? If you enjoy this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories. The small compound buzzed with whispers and sneers. Friends, family, and neighbors gathered in disbelief, their mouths wide open, hands on their heads. Some covered their faces to laugh in secret, others didn't bother hiding it. The groom stood proudly in a traditional attire, a red cap on his head, holding the hand of a blind woman in a faded ankara. She leaned on a walking stick. Her face was covered in strange wart-like growths. Her skin looked like it had seen too much sun, too much sadness. Has George finally lost his mind? Someone shouted from the back. "This is witchcraft," screamed a woman with tribal marks, shaking her head. "A whole graduate, now marrying this?" Laughter erupted. "She's cursed. She used charms to get him," another voice joined. George didn't flinch. His eyes were soft, locked on the woman beside him. Her fingers trembled as they gripped his hand, but he gently gave her a reassuring squeeze. No makeup, no glamour, no riches. Just two people standing in the face of a cruel world. He smiled and whispered into her ear, "Ignore them, my queen. I see you." But what nobody in that crowd knew, not a single one, was that this blind beggar woman, standing beside George, was none other than Olivia Donald, the billionaire heiress of one of Nigeria's largest empires, the daughter of Chief Donald, the CEO of Donald Group, and by the time they found out, they would be on their knees, begging. Earlier, just 2 weeks ago, in the heart of Lagos Island, inside a sprawling mansion worth billions, Olivia Donald stood by her window. The skyline sparkled under the moonlight, but her heart felt like a ghost town, empty, quiet, and aching. She had everything: a master's degree, international awards, her father's business empire at her fingertips, but not love, not real love. At just 25, Olivia was already handling multi-million-dollar contracts, managing boardrooms full of men twice her age. She had made her father proud. She had made the entire country proud. But what good was all that, when every man she dated only saw dollar signs? Her last boyfriend, a slick-talking, fast-smiling fraud, borrowed $300,000 and stole one of her favorite cars, then vanished. The one before that? He made her believe in forever, until she found out he was secretly married and had 3 children in Warri. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She clenched her fists and whispered, "I need to know if someone can love me without all this." That night, she made a decision that would shock the country. Olivia would go undercover as a blind, sick beggar. If someone could love her in that form, then she would know it was real. She planned everything. The next evening, she walked into the lavish living room where Chief Donald, her father, sat flipping through a newspaper. "Daddy," she said softly, "I want to take a 2-week trip to Dubai, just to breathe before my birthday." He smiled. "Go, my daughter. Buy yourself the world, take $500,000, and make sure you don't come back with another heartbreak." Olivia smiled back, but her heart ached with the lie. She wasn't going to Dubai. She booked a one-way flight to Port Harcourt under a fake name. When she landed the next morning, she checked into a modest hotel. A makeup artist she had flown in from Benin arrived in the evening. Hours passed as they worked. By the time they were done, the transformation was shocking. The radiant Olivia became someone else entirely. Her smooth skin was covered in growths, her sight hidden behind contact lenses that made her eyes clouded. A tattered headscarf, faded ankara, and a walking stick completed the look. She stared at her reflection. No one will know me now, she whispered. Not even my father. She took a deep breath and stepped into the real world alone, blind and desperate. For 4 days, she begged in front of the same bank. People passed by, looked at her with pity, disgust, or worse. Please, she'd say, help me to the hospital. I'm poor. I was told if I'm treated of the skin infection, I can see again. I'm dying slowly. I don't want to die on the street. Some walked faster. One man gave her 500 naira and kept walking. But the worst happened on the 4th day. A man in a fine suit came out of the bank, holding hands with a woman in tight jeans and high heels. Olivia repeated her usual line, voice shaky. Please help me. I need to see a doctor. I can't see. My skin is hurting. I can be cured. The lady stopped, scoffed, and then did the unthinkable. She poured bottled water on Olivia's face. Go and die somewhere else, she hissed. You want to curse us with your poverty? People watched, laughed, shook their heads. Olivia sat there, water dripping from her skin, heart shattered. She wanted to scream, to pull off her disguise, to reveal who she was. But she didn't. She had to know if real love still existed in this world. And then came day 5. She had just sat down in her usual spot when she saw a man approach. He was tall, calm, dressed in a well-fitted black suit. No bling, no flash. He looked like someone who was going somewhere, but still had time to care. She said her lines again, voice weaker this time. Her heart was tired. Please, sir. I need help. My skin. My eyes. I was told I can see again. If only I get treatment. But I don't have money. The man paused. He didn't speak for a moment. Then he knelt in front of her. My name is George, he said. You don't have to suffer like this. Come with me. I'll take you to the hospital. He helped her to his modest Toyota Corolla, carefully buckled her seatbelt, and drove straight to the Federal Medical Center. When the doctor came, George looked him in the eyes and said, whatever it takes to help her, do it. I'll pay. As he left to buy her food, Olivia whispered to the doctor, please, I'm not really sick, but I need your help. Just play along. I'm looking for something money can't buy. The doctor was stunned. But seeing the sadness in her eyes, he nodded. You have my word. That night, George slept on the visitor's chair beside her bed. He didn't know her name. He didn't know her past. All he saw was someone who needed love. And in just a few days, he would become the most talked-about groom in Nigeria. The sun had barely risen when the doctor called George aside in the hospital hallway. His white coat looked stiff, but his voice was gentle. She's not responding to medication, the doctor said. George's face fell. But you said her blindness and skin condition were curable. Yes, the doctor replied. Medically, they are. But I believe what she needs isn't just drugs. What she really needs is love, stability, and care. She has suffered neglect and abandonment. Her healing must start from the heart. George stood silent for a moment. He looked into the room where Olivia lay, eyes still closed, her body fragile under the thin hospital blanket. She looked like a woman the world had forgotten, but she also looked like someone who didn't give up, someone worth fighting for. That afternoon, George made a decision that would change his life forever. I'll take her home, he told the doctor. The doctor blinked, surprised. You're sure? You barely know her. I know enough, George replied. She needs someone. That's all I need to know. George settled the hospital bills with what little savings he had, then gently carried Olivia into his car. As they drove toward his small 2-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of Port Harcourt, he spoke softly. You're safe now, he told her. Whatever happens, I won't abandon you. Olivia's heart nearly burst. Her disguise may have fooled him, but her soul recognized sincerity. And for the first time in her life, someone was loving her. For her. George's apartment was nothing fancy. The floors were tiled, the walls clean but undecorated. A single ceiling fan spun above, creaking faintly. He led Olivia in, helped her sit on the couch, and said, This is your home now. I'll cook something. I don't eat much, Olivia replied, trying to keep her voice steady. George smiled. Well, I cook too much, so you'll have to try. That evening, as George prepared yam porridge in his small kitchen, Olivia sat quietly on the couch, hands resting in her lap. The makeup on her face itched. Her wig was hot. But her heart felt something new. Could this be love? Could it really happen this way? Every day after that, George left early for his job at the bank. He would make sure Olivia had food, water, and her favorite, soft gospel music playing quietly on the radio, and every afternoon, before returning home, he'd buy something sweet for her, a snack, a flower, a new scarf. But what George didn't know was that every time he left the house, Olivia bathed, removed her disguise, and the makeup artist she hired would arrive like clockwork to reapply the prosthetic warts and clouded lenses. No one suspected a thing. And as the days passed, George began to fall for her, not because she was beautiful, but because she was brilliant. Olivia would ask about his job, suggest better savings methods, and even advised him on how to handle an internal report at the bank that he was struggling with. "You said you studied accountancy?" George asked one night, surprised by her sharp insight. "Yes," Olivia replied softly, "and I have an MBA in management." George smiled. "That explains it. You're like a walking business manual." She laughed, a light, airy laugh that made George's heart skip. That night, he watched her from across the room as she pretended to struggle finding her slippers. Her skin looked tired, her hands trembled slightly, but her strength, her mind, her spirit, those were untouched. He whispered to himself, "I think I'm falling for you." By the 10th day, George couldn't hold it in anymore. He sat beside her on the couch, held her hand gently, and said, "There's something I need to tell you." Olivia's heart began to race. "I know life hasn't been kind to you," George said, "and I don't even know your real story, but I want to be part of your future, no matter what your past holds. I want to love you the way no one else ever has." Tears filled Olivia's eyes. She had never felt more seen in her entire life. You'd marry someone like me?" she whispered. George nodded. "Why not? Who you are matters more than how you look." She turned away, pretending to be overwhelmed, but in truth, she was hiding the tears of joy falling from her eyes. That night, she finally gave him a piece of the truth. "George," she said, "a long time ago, someone told me that if a man truly loved me and married me, my condition would disappear within 3 months. I don't know if it's true, but I feel like it could be." George sat up, heart pounding. "Then what are we waiting for? Let's get married tomorrow." She gasped. "Tomorrow?" "Yes. I'm not afraid of what anyone will say. I love you. If love is the cure, then let's try it." The next morning, George made phone calls to his family, neighbors, and a few friends. The reactions were mixed. "Are you insane?" his uncle shouted. "Marrying a blind, diseased beggar," said a former classmate. "This one is not love. You are bewitched." But George didn't care. He borrowed a traditional attire from his cousin, and Olivia wore one of the clean Ankara gowns George had bought for her earlier that week. As he led her to the small gathering of people in his compound, the sneers and laughter exploded. "She must have bewitched you. This marriage won't last a week. You've disgraced our family." One neighbor spat on the ground and walked away, but George ignored them all. He looked at Olivia, blind and dressed in worn-out Ankara, and said, "I see you, and I'm proud of you." They exchanged simple vows, no priest, no ring, just a promise, to love, to stay, to heal together. And as they walked back into the house, the mockery ringing behind them, Olivia asked softly, "Why are you doing this?" George looked at her with a gentle smile. "Because I see treasure in you, not what others see. Even if you never heal, I want to spend my life with you." And in that moment, something inside Olivia broke. She dropped her walking stick, fell to her knees, and burst into uncontrollable tears. "George," she whispered, "there's something I have to tell you." George stood frozen. Olivia had fallen to her knees, weeping uncontrollably, her hands clutching his. Her voice trembled. "Please, give me just a few minutes," she said. Without waiting for his response, she stood up slowly, reached for the walking stick beside her, and carefully walked toward the bathroom. George watched in silence, confused, concerned, and unsure what she was about to say or do. The minutes ticked by. 5, then 10. He walked toward the door and raised his hand to knock just as the door opened from the inside. And standing before him was not the blind beggar he had just married. George stumbled back a step, mouth wide open, heart nearly jumping out of his chest. Standing there was a different woman. She was glowing. Her caramel brown skin was flawless. Her eyes, clear, bold, and beautiful. She looked directly into his. Her wart-like growths were gone. Her face was smooth. Her long curly hair was wrapped neatly in a bun. She wore soft satin pajamas that shimmered in the light. She looked like someone who belonged on the cover of a Forbes magazine. "George," she said softly, "it's still me, Olivia." George took another step back, looking at her face, then at her hands, then at the couch. "What? What is this? Who are you?" "It's me," she said again, stepping closer. "I'm the woman you helped, the one you married. I was just in disguise." "In disguise?" George could barely breathe. I don't understand. Are you a spirit? What's happening?" She placed her hand gently on his shoulder. "I'm sorry for lying to you," Olivia said. "But I had no other way to find someone who would love me. Not for my name, not for my money, but for my heart." George stared at her, speechless. "I'm Olivia Donald," she continued, "daughter of Chief Donald, CEO of Donald Group. The girl you picked up outside the bank. That was me. In makeup. In costume." George's eyes grew even wider. "Wait, Chief Donald? You mean the Chief Donald?" She nodded. "My mother died giving birth to me," she said quietly. "My father never remarried. He gave me everything, love, education, a company, but he couldn't give me what I wanted most. Real love. 2 men I dated in the past only wanted my money. One of them stole $300,000 and disappeared. I lost trust in everyone." She took a deep breath. "So I ran away. I faked a trip to Dubai, flew to Port Harcourt, hired a makeup artist, and became someone else. A blind beggar with skin disease. I needed to see if real love still existed." George sat down slowly, his mind spinning like a storm. You did all that? To find someone like me?" "Yes," Olivia whispered, "because I needed to find someone like you." Silence filled the room for a moment. Then George leaned back and began to laugh. A deep, disbelieving laugh. "I married a blind woman this morning," he said, still in shock. "And now I'm standing here with the most powerful woman in the country." Olivia knelt in front of him. "But I'm not powerful without love. I may own companies, but none of that matters if I can't find someone who sees me the way you did." George looked down at her. His mind was still spinning, but his heart had never felt more sure. "I didn't fall in love with a billionaire," he said. "I fell in love with a woman who asked for help outside a bank." Tears filled Olivia's eyes. "I'm sorry for deceiving you," she said. George gently cupped her chin. "You didn't deceive me. You tested me. And I'm glad I passed." They sat in silence, letting the moment wrap around them like a warm blanket. 2 souls who had found each other in the most unexpected way. The next morning, a private jet waited for them at Port Harcourt Airport. George had never flown in one before. He walked through the polished interior with wide eyes. Everything sparkled, marble floors, leather seats, and a glass table with champagne already chilled. Olivia sat beside him, holding his hand as the jet prepared for takeoff. "You still okay?" she asked gently. George chuckled. "I think I'm still dreaming." As the plane soared into the clouds, he looked out the window, then turned to her. "How's your father going to react?" "He'll be shocked," Olivia said, "but I think he'll respect you, especially after hearing how you treated me." Hours later, They were in Lagos. Chief Donald sat at the head of a long glass table inside his mansion. His suit was dark blue, his gold wristwatch shining under the chandelier. When Olivia walked in with George, the butler nearly dropped the tray he was holding. "Daddy," Olivia said, her voice clear, "I have someone I'd like you to meet." Chief Donald stood, eyes locked on George, who immediately bowed slightly and greeted him with respect. The chief's eyes narrowed. "I was told you were in Dubai." Olivia smiled. That was part of the plan. She told him everything. From the disguise, to the streets, to the hospital, to George taking her in without asking questions. Chief Donald was silent for a long time, his face unreadable. Finally, he turned to George. "You took care of my daughter when you thought she was nothing," he said slowly. "You married her when the world mocked you. That makes you a man of value." He stepped forward and extended his hand. "I welcome you, George, as a son." George's knees nearly buckled. Olivia beamed. Days later, George sat beside Olivia inside the boardroom of Donald Group. A massive contract sat in front of them, ready for their approval. For the first time in his life, he wasn't just a bank worker, he was now a decision-maker in one of Africa's biggest conglomerates. He glanced at Olivia. "Are you sure I belong here?" She smiled. "More than anyone I know." And together, they signed the deal. But even as success settled into their lives, not everyone forgot the past. George's phone buzzed. Again and again. Relatives, friends, people who laughed at him just days ago. "Forgive me, brother," one text read. "We were wrong. Please, help me find a job," another begged. His aunt called and sobbed over the phone. "You know I was just scared for you. Please, don't leave us behind." George shook his head and replied with a single message. "If you saw nothing good in my wife before, then don't seek her goodness now." But life had one more surprise waiting for them, because just 5 months later, George got down on one knee, this time for real, in the quiet garden behind the mansion. The sun had just set. Flowers swayed in the evening breeze. "Olivia," he said, opening the ring box, "will you marry me again, properly?" Tears streamed down her cheeks. "Yes," she whispered. 1,000 times yes. A crimson carpet stretched across the marble floors of Lagos Continental Hotel. Golden drapes hung from every corner, chandeliers sparkled like 1,000 suns, and violins played softly in the background as Nigeria's elite arrived in convoys. Black SUVs, Rolls-Royces, and Bentleys lined the private entrance. The media buzzed outside. Reporters whispered among themselves, flashing cameras and fighting for the perfect angle. Today was no ordinary wedding. This was Olivia Donald's official wedding, one of the most powerful heiresses in Africa. But what the world didn't know, and what no news article would dare guess, was that her groom was a man once mocked, laughed at, scorned for marrying a woman in rags. George stood inside the groom's suite, fully dressed in an ivory agbada, his red coral beads perfectly laid across his shoulders, matching his red cap. His heart thumped loudly in his chest, not from fear, but awe. Less than 6 months ago, he was walking home from work, surviving on a meager civil servant's salary, and now he was about to say, "I do," to a woman the world bowed to. He smiled at his reflection, then whispered, "Thank you, Mum. You taught me to love without judgment." Outside, the guests whispered as they entered the grand hall. "Isn't this the same George that married that blind woman in the village?" "Yes, now. But she turned out to be her, Olivia Donald. Wonders shall never end. And look at him now. He's glowing like the son of the richest man in Africa." Some of George's old neighbors came too, people who had laughed, mocked, and cursed him. One of them, Mum Ngozi, squeezed her way to the front of the hall in her extra-tight lace gown, whispering loudly to her daughter, If I had known that dirty girl was a billionaire, I would have begged George for her number that day." Another woman, the one who had poured water on Olivia's face outside the bank, came too. Dressed in borrowed gold lace, she stared around in disbelief, gripping her handbag like her life depended on it. When George walked into the hall with Chief Donald beside him, the murmurs turned to gasps. The chief raised his hand and said loudly, "This young man, this son, proved something many men couldn't. That love still exists. That character still matters." The crowd clapped, some reluctantly, others out of sheer shame. Moments later, the room fell silent, and then she entered. Olivia glided down the aisle in a glittering diamond-studded gown that hugged her body like a second skin. A silver crown sat atop her curly bun, and her veil shimmered like moonlight. Her smile was gentle, radiant, and sure, captured every heart in the room. People stood, cameras flashed. Ministers, governors, CEOs, and ambassadors all turned to watch her. She didn't blink. She didn't flinch. She was walking to her home, to where her heart belongs. George. When they met at the altar, George leaned in and whispered, "You still take my breath away." And Olivia whispered back, "And you still make me feel safe." The ceremony was magical. Traditional dancers performed beneath fireworks. A gospel choir sang softly during the vows. The air was filled with roses, frankincense, and tears of joy. When they were finally pronounced husband and wife again, this time under the world's watchful eyes, Chief Donald stood and raised a toast. "Today," he said, "I don't just gain a son-in-law, I gain a son, a man who reminded my daughter that love is not a transaction, but a treasure." The guests clapped, some out of excitement, others out of guilt. George's uncles, who had once called Olivia a cursed woman, now clapped the loudest. His auntie, the one who said Olivia used charms to snatch him, dressed head to toe in yellow lace, tried to smile her way into the family photos. George noticed. Later that night, at the after-party, George stepped aside to catch his breath. It was all too much. The music, the luxury, the attention. His phone buzzed again. His cousin, who once mocked him for not dating slay queens, now begged him for a job. His aunt texted, "We're family. Please forgive. We didn't mean those things. The devil used us." George sighed. He had turned to Olivia, who stood beside the chocolate fountain, laughing as children danced around her. She looked free and fulfilled. The same woman he met in pain, now a beacon of joy. He walked to her, leaned in, and said, "They're coming back. All of them." She smiled gently. "Of course they are. It's what people do when the tables turn." George nodded. "Should I forgive them?" "That's up to you," Olivia said, placing a soft kiss on his cheek. "But I married a man who values truth. If they didn't see my worth then, they don't deserve the wealth now." George turned to face the crowd and spotted the woman who had poured water on Olivia's face, her eyes, now wet with embarrassment, standing quietly in a corner. "She's here," he muttered. Olivia followed his gaze. Her smile disappeared for a moment. Then she said softly, "Let's show her grace, but not access." They turned away, back to the dance floor. George pulled Olivia close as the music changed to a slow love song. She rested her head on his chest. "You've changed my life," she whispered. "You've saved mine," he replied. 2 years later, it was a quiet Saturday morning in the garden of the mansion. Sunlight spilled over the trimmed hedges, birds chirped in the distance, and George, now dressed casually, in white kaftan and brown sandals, stood under the tree holding a tiny bundle wrapped in soft pink blanket. "She's perfect," he whispered, tears in his eyes. Olivia sat nearby, still recovering from labor, her eyes filled with exhaustion and happiness of her newborn baby. They had named her Amaka, after George's late mother, the woman who had taught him kindness, patience, and the courage to love, even when the world mocked him for it. As George cradled his newborn daughter, he was invited to speak at a youth conference just a few weeks later. And standing in front of hundreds of young Africans, he shared his story for the first time. "Don't judge people by how they look," George said. "The person begging for help on the road today might be the reason you succeed tomorrow. I married a blind beggar with skin disease, so I thought. But she turned out to be a billionaire. Not because God wanted to trick me, but because he wanted to test me." The crowd stood, clapping, some crying. George smiled. "But love isn't found in bank accounts. It's found in moments of truth. I loved her when she was nothing. And now, she's everything." The morning of Olivia's 28th birthday was quiet, peaceful, and filled with sunshine pouring through the glass windows of their Lagos mansion. The staff moved about with soft footsteps. The garden had been decorated with pastel balloons and wildflowers. Inside, a photo of baby Amaka sat on the marble dining table, her tiny hands folded over her chest, her big, curious eyes staring at the camera. George watched Olivia from across the room. She was laughing with Amaka in her arms, playfully bouncing her on her hip while wearing a flowing peach gown that brushed against the floor. Her skin glowed with the kind of joy only peace and true love could give. George leaned against the doorway, hands tucked into his pockets, quietly admiring the woman who had changed his life. 2 years ago, she was wrapped in rags, sitting on the street corner, pretending to be blind. Now, she was the most powerful woman in Nigeria, and the most loved person in his world. George's phone buzzed again, another message from someone who had mocked him during the wedding, the same ones who shouted, "This woman will curse your life." They were now asking him for favors. Some needed jobs at Donald Group. Others begged for loans, forgiveness, or access to Olivia. George sighed, turned his phone face down, and walked over to his wife. Olivia turned to him, smiling. "You're thinking too hard. I see that forehead wrinkling." He laughed. "You know me too well." She leaned against him, baby Amaka giggling between them. "I'm just wondering," George whispered, "how we got so lucky." Olivia looked up at him. "It wasn't luck. It was love. Tested, refined, and true." They stood like that for a moment, wrapped in quiet gratitude, the kind of silence that speaks louder than any applause. Later that afternoon, George and Olivia were invited as keynote speakers at the National Young Entrepreneurs Conference in Abuja. The event hall was packed. Cameras flashed. Every seat was taken. George walked on stage, holding Olivia's hand. The audience stood to their feet, clapping and cheering. Many already knew their story. It had gone viral. It was in newspapers, blogs, even international TV. But hearing it live from the couple themselves was something else entirely. George began. "There was a time in my life when I thought love had to come wrapped in perfection. That beauty had to be visible, success had to shine, and purpose had to announce itself. But I was wrong." The audience listened, fully locked in. He continued, "I married a blind beggar because my heart saw something no one else did, and when the disguise was gone, she wasn't just beautiful, she was powerful. She was Olivia Donald." He paused, turned to her, and smiled. The crowd clapped again, some rising to their feet. Then Olivia stepped forward. "I pretended to be blind, poor, and sick, not to trick anyone, but to find truth. My success had become a wall, and all I wanted was someone who would climb it, not for the gold at the top, but for the soul behind it." She turned to George. "You didn't just marry me. You saw me. You believed in me. When everyone else poured water on my face, you poured kindness into my soul." Then she turned back to the crowd. "To every young woman here today, you are not your money, your looks, or your status. You are your truth. Protect it. Don't settle for attention. Wait for love." The applause was deafening. After the event, Chief Donald invited close family and business friends to a private dinner at the estate. During the toast, he raised his glass and said, "2 years ago, I almost lost my daughter to loneliness, but now I see that loneliness was a setup for the kind of love money cannot buy." He looked at George. "Son, you remind me of who I was when I first met her mother. You loved deeply, fearlessly, and for that, I'll never stop thanking you." George blinked rapidly, fighting back tears. Olivia reached for his hand under the table and gave it a light squeeze. Weeks later, a new branch of Donald Group was launched in George's hometown. It was a business empowerment center for young men and women with no access to capital. George insisted it bear his mother's name, the Amaka Center for Growth, Kindness. During the opening, George stood on stage with his baby girl on one arm, a mic in his other hand. "Wealth means nothing if we can't build others with it," he said. "My mother taught me to love beyond sight. My wife taught me to lead with the heart. Now I want to teach the next generation never to judge people by what they wear or how they walk, because sometimes the person in rags is carrying the kingdom you've been praying for. Back in Lagos, life settled into something even more beautiful than fairy tales. George and Olivia started a foundation for street children. Every week, they visited the very places Olivia once begged in disguise, offering food, medical aid, and educational scholarships. Many of the people who once mocked her were shocked when they realized who she really was. One day, Olivia came across the same woman who had once poured water on her face outside the bank. She was now selling fruits by the roadside. Olivia approached her gently. The woman's eyes widened in fear. "I'm sorry. I didn't know it was you." Olivia smiled. "I forgive you," she said. "But next time you see someone asking for help, don't throw water. Throw mercy." The woman burst into tears. That night, George and Olivia sat on the balcony of their mansion, stars blinking above them. Baby Amaka was asleep in her crib. George poured Olivia a glass of Zobo and sat beside her. "You know," he said, "if I had ignored you that day outside the bank, we wouldn't be here." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "But you didn't," she whispered. "You saw me when the world didn't." George looked out into the night. "And I'll keep seeing you every day for the rest of our lives." They clinked glasses, kissed softly, and let the silence wrap around them like a promise. What is your view about this story? Where are you watching from? If you like this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.